Hi, everybody. Okay. Getting situated. I've got a clicker and a microphone. Great. Okay. All right. This way I won't forget to speak into the microphone. You can all hear me. Hi. Last talk of the day, I think, so thank you guys for hanging in there. Thanks for having me too, ETH Portland. My name's Carolyn Reckow. I'm the head of biz dev at Thesis, which is the venture studio behind Fold, Keepin' TBTC, and Saddle. And our latest focus is Tally, the first community-owned and operated Web3 wallet. And today, I'm going to walk you through a saga that has been playing out in the Web3 ecosystem since its inception. You may not know the whole narrative, but you probably know some of the key players, and you've definitely heard this decentralization yarn spun before. This is a tale of two wallets. So it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. When? Here, today, in 2021, in the Web3 metaverse, right? We're seeing the ecosystem start to shake out into these two camps. On one side, there's the community-driven, open, bottom-up projects that are pushed forward by all the brave anons out there and a whole cohort of diverse and idealistic crypto critters, a lot of them out there. And then the other side, you have the megacorps. These are large, centralized, institutional-friendly crypto conglomerates benefiting from the monopolies that made possible by their early mover advantage, right? So this tale shows us that in straying from their natural free and open habitats into the megatropolis of crypto conglomerates, even the most clever of foxes can transform into fat cats. I'm going to tell you a bit about the nature of our wallets. And yeah, you know about wallets, right? Necessary infrastructure, they're the gateway to Web3. But how much do you really know about what drives wallets, how they operate behind the mask? And today's story illuminates one particular, often obscured centralization point in an otherwise decentralized Web3 project. And we're going to be reminded that it takes a community committed to decentralization to actually realize decentralization. Okay, so the market today is moving towards these two choices. On one side, you've got Metamask. Everyone's familiar. It's a wallet owned by Consensus, a centralized conglomerate. And on the other side, you've got Tally, a truly decentralized, community-owned option. So at Tally, we're building the wallet that the open internet deserves. To us, that means access over privilege, open source over restrictive licensing, and community control over centralized profiteering, right? So what is Tally, right? Why are we all worked up about building decentralized systems? Why does it matter so much? To us, decentralization means community ownership, individual agency, which looks like just owning your own data and your own lives on the internet, and the importance of distributed value generation. All these things stand in contrast to the old familiar way that enterprises develop. They turn into centralized conglomerates. And so conglomerates are actually almost a perfect, like, modern day Dickens villain archetype, right? They're corpulent, self-serving, growing, always wanting more, with little regard for all of those around them, the little guys. And you see this through limited user ownership, private corporation controlling personal data, and they survive by the old rent-seeking behaviors, right? So conglomerates, they mean marketplace monopolies. And if you guys need the Econ 101 refresher, monopolies are bad. They're bad for users, they're bad for access, choice, liberty, all sorts of stuff. This is a data point here illustrating how bad that this has gotten. This chart is from Eric Posner and Glenn Wheel's Radical Markets. And here they're basically showing that over time, since the 80s, we have even more monopolies today than we've ever seen before. And that those monopolies are charging everybody larger and larger markups over time, larger than we've ever seen in the past. And all of this activity is at the detriment of the little guys. The internet was built on the ideals of openness, collaboration, and decentralization. But along the way, the allure of advertising dollars got some of the best of us. And if we're going to build a new open internet, it has to be built with decentralized methods at its core, open source methods. And there's no excuse for closing the doors on collaboration and returning to parasitic rent-seeking business models. But it wasn't always this way on the path to Web3. How did we get here? We're going to take a super quick detour from the story and walk down the history lesson of open finance. How did we get to Web3? And is there anything we should be taking from the enduring legacy and ethos of the vision of the open internet, right? So starting all the way with open source software, peer-to-peer technologies, to the advent of Bitcoin, the birth of Ethereum, DeFi, the metaverse, everything coming out these days. It all started with FOSS. Decades and decades ago, free and open source software. So open source is great for a lot of reasons. It means the faster development of new ideas. It means free education for new developers. And it just means a safer, more secure internet, right? Open source enables anybody who cares and has the talent to find and report on bugs, improve protocols, and participate in governance. It's interesting that FOSS was once considered really fringe, because nowadays I think it's really difficult to deny the immense impact it's had. Pretty much every server in the world runs Linux. Almost all software development happens with Git. And like every major corporation has policies for supporting open source software. People know it's important. One interesting parallel to the present crypto space is governance here, right? So early open source projects actually pioneered the template for collaboration and governance that a lot of today's DAOs strive for. You could even say that early open source projects were the first DAOs, right? Just a bunch of people coming together from around the world, building something and figuring out the best way to govern themselves along the way. All right, after FOSS and before Bitcoin, you had this other piece of technology that paved the way for open culture online, BitTorrent. BitTorrent brought books, games, music, movies into the reach of any kid with an internet connection, which made finding and consuming, remixing culture super easy, right? This rise of peer-to-peer tech and file sharing was never about money, right? It was a homespun thing. It was just about having fun, access, participation, curation, and collection. And today, you're seeing a rebirth of this remix culture in NFTs. A lot of ways, NFTs are the spiritual successor to ripping CDs and seeding torrents and like just curating your collection, right? NFT, this peer-to-peer open marketplace for culture that we're seeing arise, turns consumption into collaboration, and it turns the community into this like superorganism where the people who are actually seeding the culture are the ones that are rewarded in the marketplace. And then you've got Bitcoin. I won't get into the story. I think all of you guys are familiar with the gospel. But I will use this moment to highlight a segment from Thesis' history, because I think it really reflects how important this, like, oh shit, Bitcoin moment was for all of us. So in 2014, PayPal blocked payment processing for Thesis founder Matt Luongo for his first startup. This was an early, like, precursor to Fold, Bitcoin payments app. And when PayPal blocked him, he jumped into action. Quickly figured out that all of these financial gatekeepers had decided that his business was too risky. And finding any sort of processor that would keep him on would just, like, take way too many resources, way beyond what he had as a baby founder. So he started researching, discovered Bitcoin. A few days later down the rabbit hole, he had prototyped an entire payment processor on top of Bitcoin. Boom. There were no phone calls, no meetings, no legal agreements. No one had to, like, put on a suit and go impress someone and convince them to, invest in him. It was an incredibly empowering experience for Matt, this first experience with encounter with open finance. And I highlight it because I think a lot of us have had really similar empowering experiences. And now, almost a decade later, Ethereum is starting to deliver on its vision of an open, trustless, user-owned internet for all. And we're starting to see open finance grow up. Anybody can choose from a whole suite of DeFi applications. You can, like, trade, add liquidity on Uniswap, borrow or lend on Aave. And though we're calling this latest generation of apps DeFi, decentralization is really just a means to an end. An open, permissionless finance is actually a catalyst for the expansive future of user-directed communities, networks, and even the social and technical fabric of the internet itself. Each new movement, milestone here, in this timeline, undermined traditional gatekeepers in some way to unlock something greater, resulting in open networks with permissionless access and censorship resistance, consistently leading to new ways of innovating for user freedom. And the economic incentives of Web3's open finance definitely accelerate this trend. In 2020, the fair launch of Yearn was really compelling for a lot of people, right? So the Yearn team, they radically rewarded their users with real ownership, right? Early users got these Wi-Fi tokens, and that vaulted Yearn to be one of the most significant DeFi projects, if not one of the most significant DeFi communities of all of 2020. And that's because tokens turn users into owners. Shared vision and shared ownership make for some of the most powerful communities ever. Every user, fan, advocate, they can all be incentivized to grow and maintain their favorite projects. And if these projects succeed together, everybody wins. Okay, so all of this open access and talk about new models, none of this stuff is possible unless you've got a Web3 wallet, right? So back to the story, Metamask. So Metamask plays a huge role in the development of the early Ethereum ecosystem, right? They start out in the early days very much aligned with the open source ethos of the space. They've got all of the same values of the peer-to-peer FOSS forefathers. And I think it's 2016 that they officially launch. And they launch with this like familiar browser extension user experience. I mean, familiar to all of us because we're seasoned internet users, but like compared to the wallets before it, those things was just like a sea of obtuse, sort of like cryptographically focused, just not great products. So people loved it, right? They got a bunch of grants from the Ethereum Foundation, I think, and then quickly they were stewarded by the nascent Consensus at the time. And Consensus, so I actually got my start with Consensus, as I think a lot of people who work in crypto did. I was with them back in 2015, one of the first employees, and I know the Metamask team really well. Aaron, Dan, Frankie, all incredible people, all aligned with all those open source values that I just talked about. And I worked alongside all these guys in shared idealism in those early days. And I've always been in awe of what that team was able to pave for the Ethereum community in the desert of Web3 back then, right? We wouldn't be where we were today if it wasn't for MetaMask. We would have never survived the ICO boom and the CryptoKitty bacchanal of 2017 and 2018 if it wasn't for them. And I think for that, probably everybody in this room is grateful. But all centralized projects have their reckoning day. This one landed on August 20th, 2020. On this day, MetaMask quietly scrapped its open MIT licensing, abandoning its commitment to free and open source software. And then a couple months later, you saw them launch Metaswap, which is an in-extension DEX that charges a fee going directly to the Consensus conglomerate. And then a few months after that, you saw Consensus announcing a huge $65 million raise from JP Morgan. So let's take a look at what's going on with Metaswap. How did Consensus start to quietly take profit? So Metaswap charges an enormous fee versus Uniswap, SushiSwap, 0x, 1inch, as high as like 1% per trade. And unlike each of those platforms, the tens of millions of dollars in fees that they're bringing in monthly, none of that is going back to the users. Unfortunately, it goes directly to Consensus, tightly held corporation. And we're not the only ones to notice. Our friend Tom Schmidt here dove into the chain this past spring and made some tweets here and showed us what's going on. And as you can see, I think this is in February and this is in April of this past year. Yeah, that's a lot of fees. They're making a lot of money. So yeah, despite all this, despite years of community advocacy, MetaMask users aren't making a dime. And not to mention, recent MetaMask releases also include a few choices that are at odds with what's best for user sovereignty. It's interesting, right? We're seeing potentially blocking wallet access by country and just increased user surveillance. These are product choices that are pretty standard for Web 2. But for Web 3, we can do better. And we have to do better. And from that conviction, Tally was born. August 20th, 2020, the idea seeded. And when MetaMask started to suck up tens of millions of dollars in fees per month quietly, that's when the full vision took root. So as entrenched products move towards corporate capture, Tally poses an opportunity to deliver a wallet based on openness in its product, culture, code, and community. And when we talk about building a community-owned and operated wallet, we're talking about solving community problems as a community. And when I say problems, what I mean is Web3 product pain points. Yeah. So let's talk about the day-to-day plights of a DeFi or Web3 user for a second. Come down from all this like crypto idealism talk. What's it like for your average user waking up, greeting the fox with their morning coffee, clicking connect, swap, ape in, lend, whatever? I think we all know that that actual experience of using Metamask today, unfortunately, leaves a lot to be desired. I think we all have our lists of pain points and UX frustrations. We know a lot needs to be better. We're seeing the market move much faster than the product. And sadly, that means that often user safety and experience is on the chopping block. So this is how we kicked off our journey with Tally, is we started talking to our friends and asking them, what would it look like if your Web3 wallet experience met your needs today? We talked to a lot of users, community members, DeFi projects, L1s, infrastructure, L2s, and asked, what's your dream wallet, right? What's on your wish list? And we heard a few things loud and clear, some of which I'll talk about in a second, but I think the most important of which was the fact that nobody had ever asked them this before, right? And if, you know, they certainly had never been heard if they had ever shouted out into the abyss with, you know, feature requests or changes. So for me, I think one of the most exciting things about community ownership means just eliminating that gap between the user and the product. Okay, so this is what we heard, right? These are some of the questions shaping our product vision. What would it look like if your Web3 wallet worked seamlessly with DeFi? What would it look like if your layer 2 experience was seamless or just more organic? How about if your hardware wallet just worked? And also, what would it look like if the interface point for your wallet was a DAO? It might look like this. So here are some screens from Tally. You guys are getting a sneak peek. For us, this first release is going to focus on open finance. It's going to work its way across the entire DeFi ecosystem, and pretty much anywhere that you can use MetaMask today to farm, swap, yield, yield farm, borrow, whatever. Tally is going to work there too, right? And the launch is going to open up a whole bunch of new yield opportunities, integrating tightly with Yearn and then a whole bunch of other aggregators, making passive yield easy, almost like a traditional savings account kind of interface. And most importantly here, instead of enriching a select few, all fees generated by the wallet are going to go to users, bootstrapping a robust community. So yeah, come build with us. We're already pretty well underway. We started open sourcing our code a couple of weeks ago. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be plan to go completely open source with all of our repos. Audits. So we are in the middle of an open audit right now with Code Arena. And we've already done one audit with Open Zeppelin, have another one about to start. And then lastly, we've released this limited alpha available for our early community members on Discord, which leads me to, I think, the most important progress point here, which is the community. So since we announced Tally and started inviting users into our Discord back in August, the community's been growing like crazy. It's really awesome. We have 6,000 members in our Discord today, And I think this is the most exciting one is we had 500 people join our community call last Friday. We do these weekly community calls just on Discord, like updates from the team. We invite projects that might want to integrate with us to chat. And yeah, I mean, I've just never seen 500 people on a community call before, so that was pretty cool. And we're launching soon. Yeah. We are aiming to launch with kind of an MVP version of the wallet that is launched fairly, sustainably aligned with users, and wholly owned by the community. And the goal is to take off before the end of the year. So if you're interested, I'd say make sure to keep one paw in Discord to find out like all the latest. And yeah, so this is how you do that. Join us on Discord. We've got a lot of really fun dog memes and excited community. Right there, chat.tally.cash is our Discord. You can also follow us on Twitter. And there's our blog. And yeah, that's it. Join us. And one last thing I'll say is to launch as a community-owned wallet, we need you guys, right? And if you jump into Discord, be prepared to tell us, what don't you like about Web3 wallets? What features are you missing? And how do you guys think that we can make open finance easier and more accessible today? And if you're a DeFi project or a dApp team, that applies to you too. We want you to know, we want to know what all your wallet pain points are and invite you to launch with us. And we think that DeFi deserves an alternative user-owned stack, and probably you agree. So yeah, ping me, or you can just jump right in our Discord and say hello. We'll get you set up with the community and join our weekly calls. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Thanks. I'm Carolyn. That's my Twitter, and that's how you reach me on Telegram. That's it. I don't know if there's time for questions. No.